Hello everyone. Now we'll see about the cell membrane. Okay, already we have finished seeing all the cell organelles. Now we'll see about the cell membrane. So this is the cell membrane. Why we need a cell membrane? Actually, the cell membrane protects the interior organelles and all the contents of the cell from the external environment. It separates the intracellular fluid from the extracellular fluid. So the cell membrane acts as a barrier to our cell. So why we need a cell membrane? The first thing, it gives protection. Protection means it protects all the cellular contents from the external environment and acts as the barrier. It maintains the shape and size of the cell, and also it selectively permeates some solutes, ions, and also it allows nutrients, water, gases to pass through. Next important thing is it helps in signal transmission. That means it transmits the signals and also it helps in communication with the neighboring cells. The last important function is it maintains membrane potential. So the main features of cell membrane are protection, that means it acts as a barrier, it maintains the shape and size of the cell. Third one, it helps in signal transmission, and the last one, it maintains the membrane potential. Now, why it is called as a fluid mosaic model? This mosaic model is given by your thin flexible lipid sheet and the iceberg-like protein and the carbon extending out. All these components provides you the mosaic model. But why it should be called as fluid? Because they move freely along the plane of the membrane. That is why it is called as fluid mosaic model. Now we'll see about the composition of the lipid membrane. It contains lipids, proteins and carbohydrates. Lipids, mainly there are two lipids. We'll see in the next slide. So lipids, it contains phospholipids and also cholesterol. So phospholipids contains sphingolipids too. So the major components of lipids are phospholipids, sphingolipids and cholesterol. The structure of phospholipid is, it contains a head and tail. The head contains the phosphate portion and the tail contains the fatty acid hydrocarbon chain. What is the structure of cholesterol then? It contains a polar head group, rigid steroid structure, and the last one is non-polar hydrocarbon tail. Okay, so polar head group and a rigid steroid nucleus structure, and the tail is formed by the non-polar hydrocarbon substances. Now, looking into the phospholipid, this is the glycerol backbone. To the first carbon, the phosphate group is attached. To the second and third carbon, two fatty acid chains are attached. So this phosphate group, it forms the polar head. And the two fatty acid chains, they form the tail of the phospholipid group. So this is the structure of phospholipid in the lipid bilayer. Why it should be called as amphipathic? Because this polar head group is hydrophilic head, whereas this non-polar hydrocarbon chain is hydrophobic. That means it is not soluble in water, it is lipid soluble. So the lipid solubles are present in the core. That means the hydrophobic are present in the core of the membrane, whereas to the exterior and to the interior of the membrane, hydrophilic heads, polar head groups are formed in the exterior and interior. That is why since it contains both hydrophilic and hydrophobic group, it is called as amphipathic bilayer. But you can see a kink in the tail of the phosphate group. Kink means there is a bend here. This bend is produced by the unsaturated fatty acid. That means there is a bond. There is a cis bond, which leads to unsaturation. This produces a kink, otherwise bend in the tail group. This helps in fluidity of the membrane. Coming to the phospholipids, it contains many phospholipids. One is phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine,